What is happening, Blades? Welcome back to the Blades Ramble. And I am very excited for this one. I probably say that on every one, but this is a little bit extra special for me. I have been trying my best to get this man on since I started, really, because it may not be the most sort of, you know, people clamoring to see this video, but for me, this is one of the most important ones I'll do because I talk about him more than I talk about Darren Smith, which is unbelievable, more than I talk about Cameron Archer. And there's a reason for that, because this is my dad. And what I'm wanting to do is persuade him that YouTube isn't as scary as everybody says. And I'm going to introduce you to him in a minute and sort of let you know we'll talk about a bit about his background and things like that. But I want it to be a regular fixture on the channel. So if you can put your comments down and your likes and let him know what you think. I know I'm sort of building him up here, but this is the man that sort of molded my opinions on football and sort of shaped me and how I view things. So without any further ado, welcome to the Ramble, Andy the Blade.
I can't believe it. You're going to be setting me up here. I know you are. I just know you are.
I wouldn't do that.
I've no idea why you want me on, to be honest. But
because, you know, I value your opinion. We talk about Blades all the time.
I know you value my opinion because you nick all my opinions and promote Blades Ramble.
Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. I think McBurney's half decent. I don't rate Jack Robinson. Yeah, well, we won't come to McBurney just yet.
No. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hi, Jim. What do I call you now anyway, Jim? Do I call you Jimmy
whatever you want?
Whatever
you want. My little lad, like you introduced me.
Yeah.
Right. So, Dad, first things first. Am I gonna have to call you Andy so people get used to it? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll move with
it. Can't
call
me Dad, can you?
First thing I want to touch on is, obviously, born a Blade.
Yeah.
Your dad was a Blade. My grandfather. In fact, first thing to probably touch on is he was the only one of your parents that were a Blade, weren't he?
My mum were a Wednesday. Yeah, but she, I know, we didn't talk about it very much though, and she did sort of like just let it go and never sort of like made it. She wasn't a real proper Wednesday. I think she just did it to annoy my dad, to be honest.
Well, it worked. It worked.
So I were always a Blade. My dad used to take me from an early age, from when I were about, I think I've been trying to think about when I were about 6 or 7, maybe. Didn't really want to go. I only used to go because he used to buy me a comic on wait at game. So that's how it was. And that would be probably, I don't really want to say how old, but probably about 1963-ish, something like that.
Wow.
Yes, something like that. Wow. So, yeah, that was when I first started.
And obviously you were only a nipper, but it's mad to think that you weren't interested even at that stage, because thinking now how football has not dominated our lives, but it's a huge part of it, isn't it, in your story and stuff like that. It's
massive, really. But it was funny because obviously I started going on my own with some mates from school. When I went to school, I went to De La Salle, which was like a Catholic school in Pittsmore, and had a few mates there. But then quite soon we moved through my mum and dad's work, we moved to Wakefield. And so I'd have been about 12, 13. And strangely enough, I became more of a Blade when I was on my own, if you know what I mean. It was like a badge of honour to be somebody different. So I used to go on my own and meet some mates over there. So I used to travel over from when I were about 13, 14. So that would have been like 1970-ish sort of thing. Yeah. So, and used to follow them all over it from that time. So sort of like from my 13, 14 to about in my early 20s, really, when I started playing football a little bit more myself properly. And then it became more of when I could get to see them and stuff like that. So
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because we were talking about this just in passing, not even talking about lead up to this, I suppose, but you've always been a big Blade, obviously, and always kept an eye on them. But there's been patches where you've been sort of out for particular reasons,
Yeah.
isn't there? So, do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I've always been a Blade. Then, as I say, I followed them home and away in that sort of period. But then I started playing myself and got to a half decent level. And then I got married, sort of like got into my 30s, and decided it's a bit more spare time, stopped playing as much, and I had a couple of mates up from, we'd made a couple of mates who were Wakefield Blades as well, who I still see now. And we used to go, we got season tickets again in my 30s, and we used to go home and away then in my 30s. But what happened was I met my famous mate, Chris. Me and my mate John Allett had been to a United game. Chris Kamara had just signed for United, and we met him in this pub in Wakefield, and he lives in Wakefield because he'd signed from Leeds, I think. And we just clicked really, and I've become really good mates with him ever since. And eventually, over the course of a year or so, started asking me to go to games with him because he were hoping to get into managing and things like that. So he became like the assistant manager of Bradford, and he asked me to start on the games with him and looking at players and asking me opinions. And basically, it just went from there. And I finished up being like a full-time scout for the next 25 years for different clubs. I started off with Chris at Bradford. I went with him then to Stoke. Then he left, he got sacked at Stoke, but I got asked to go to Chelsea and really loved it at Chelsea. That were with Vialli and people like that. But then I got asked to go back to Bradford. I made a lot of friends at Bradford. Paul Jewell, who was the manager at that time, he got into Premiership, and he asked me to go back as a full-time chief scout. So I went back there and had a great time. Met a lot of people. Met Stuart McCall again, and people who we all know Dean Saunders and Chris Wilder. Actually, Chris Wilder was the first time I was there, but obviously got to know a lot of people. I was there for 3 years. Then things all went a little bit pear-shaped with the chairman, really, to be honest. But not so much me, but obviously just the club itself. And I got offered a job at Everton with David Moyes. And I was then with David Moyes and had a great time at Everton for about 15, 16 years. So I stayed on when Moyes went to Man U. So I stayed on with Martinez. When Martinez started bringing in his own people, I thought, I'll give it a bit of a break because I've done it for 25 years. So stopped there. And to be honest, what happened, so I've been going to games 3 or 4 times a year, and I've loved it and seen lots of things and got looked after really well. But decided obviously Jim and Dave, my other son Dave, and my sister Sally, who you know as Eki Out Sal, we were all talking and we were all saying, and it was just sort of like coincided with the time that we started doing well again under Chris Wilder.
Yeah, it did.
And so we said, why don't we just all go together and start like making it a bit of a family thing? And I'm not joking, I've really loved it since then. I've loved all the scouting and things like that, but we started going, and there's me and Jim and Dave and Arsal, and there's 4 of us, and we go and have a couple of beers at Triple Point, and then go and watch the game and bloody put it all to pieces and stuff like that. And it's been great. Yeah. Last what would it be? About 6 years or something, Jim? We've all been going or something like that.
Yeah,
6, 7 years maybe. But yeah,
so on a regular basis. Yeah.
In a nutshell, really, I don't know if you want to go into it any further. I've got loads of things I could talk about, but just go on forever. So
no, that's true. And I mean, just a couple of bits to pick up on that. Thank you for that, Dad. But just when you were at Premier League in Premier League with Bradford, I just want to put it on record that I know it's not really for you to say, but chairman were an absolute nightmare, Jeffrey Richmond, and I know that obviously firsthand. But you had no involvement in the plethora of huge wages that ended up nearly bankrupting Bradford, and that was one of sort of things that.
No, I didn't. One of the reasons why, what happened was the chairman wanted to be. I don't want chairman coming after me and all, but no, we didn't. I don't want him suing me, but no, there were lots of players who the scouts were involved with. So yeah, we didn't have a.
And another thing is, some blades may put two and two together here and recognise why. I mean, it started with Jags, but then there was a regular link between Sheffield United and Everton for some time because my dad wanted to make sure we went. Go on.
Well, because I was a blade, obviously I still like going to United games whenever I could, but I had to go wherever I was watching different players. But it just so happened that I thought if I recommend United players here, I'll get to watch plenty of United games. So, yeah, I recommended Jagielka to start off with, and then obviously Kyle Walker and Kyle Norton who we were looking at, and Harry Maguire we looked at for a while.
You're lucky that we had a genuinely good, great quality academy, aren't you? Because if there'd been crap players, you'd have never got away with that.
Well, I did it for about 4 or 5 years, and then United went through a bad spell, and I couldn't even think of anybody who we could buy. So.
I remember us going to League One. I remember us going to a game in League One, and you were watching Harry Maguire, and you like at that time we were very raw, and you were like, "I'm really struggling to justify this now." In terms of going to these games for players.
But Everton, I were after buying Kyle Walker for Everton for ages, and we got pipped at the post by Tottenham. I were devastated. Because I really wanted, obviously, Kyle Walker, but that was just a different story.
It worked with other players as well, didn't it? Because I don't mind dropping a few names in. Like there were a Millwall quartet, weren't there, that you were interested in? And whenever they came up north, United, then you could get to United Millwall games and look at. Well, you can tell names yourself if you want.
Well, it started at Bradford City, really, and I went down to watch Neil Harris, who was a centre forward at Millwall. Who was a really good goal scorer, but didn't really have one of those where you'll know this, Jim, because you've done your scouting. So you go and you think, well, I know he can score goals, but he can't run, he can't edit, he can't. Do you know what I mean? He's not strong. Yeah. You think all he's got is just that thing that he can score goals.
Yeah, Jordan Road.
Which is a big thing, obviously, but it's very hard to quantify. But there were 3 other players who just stole the show for me at that time, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult to find one player when you go to a game, but when you see 4, and there were 4 players, there was this Neil Harris. I'll let you tell who the others were. You always know who they are. You always repeat. Tim Cahill was my main one.
Tim Cahill was the star boy, weren't he? Which you obviously got over the line
for everybody to buy. I pushed for Brad. Paul Joel goes mad at this because he says, "You never told me about Tim Cahill." But I definitely did. And then
here's the report, Al.
Here's the report. I keep all my old reports.
Stephen Reed and Lucas Neal were the 2, weren't they? Who both obviously went on to have really good careers as well. So there's been loads of successes, and I could brag about your calls all day, but go on.
I tell you about all my successes. I keep my failures a little bit quiet, so I don't.
I can reel them off as well if you want. I can reel a few.
no, it's all right.
So that sort of interrupted your regular watching of United, hasn't it? Other than obviously we got 2 games.
It did. I used to see him whenever I could, but obviously there was quite a big gap, a 20-year gap. Basically, when United were rubbish, but I did get to see games because I could always get to see the big games if I were able to do, and it won't clashing with something I else had to do. So I was really lucky. In particular, I was really lucky in the triple assault season. I got to see loads of games in that season. Yeah, quite often. I saw the 2 biggest games. I saw 2 biggest games. I saw Forest. The 4-3 game, and I saw Liverpool when we beat Liverpool at home when Tongi scored the 2 goals. Saw them from the gantry.
I was going to say, do you want to tell the story about Forest?
Well, Forest. Yeah, I sneaked up with Kamara. Chris Kamara were doing the commentary, and because we became really good friends with all the family. I mean, you've never mentioned this, but you and our Dave became quite good friends with his sons, Jack and Ben, didn't you?
We did, yeah.
And Jack's a cameraman now. But me and Jack went with Chris to on the gantry. And when United were scoring, we got told off about 3 times because we were jumping up and down and shouting and carrying on.
I know you are.
So
Chris turning around and saying, "What are you doing?
I know. Be quiet, be quiet." So yeah, no, but there was some great games, and obviously we got. In fact, it's all the biggest games, you know. I saw the Leeds when we beat them 2-1 at home when Jags scored and all that sort of stuff. So, and I think that's probably my favourite season. I don't know whether you were going to ask me about that, but that's probably the favourite season. I've told you that before, even more so than our promotion seasons.
Yeah,
because we get promoted and then we come back down again. So
I think that was the first time that we'd been to majority of games together as well that season. So that's why I remember it so fondly. At first, you know, because I'd not had a season ticket being only played in town because you were off scouting and I'd go with you to games, to be honest, most at the time.
But I used to get them for nothing. Get them for nothing, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'd go to different games, sometimes United, but often we were all over the place. So I didn't get to United as much as I'd like, but that triple assault season, we just dropped on really where we could go on a regular basis, fairly regular
I don't know
anyway.
It worked out that, but
no, we were quite lucky with it, weren't we? So
I think I recommended Brown and Tong and everybody else, to be honest, that season to
Paddy, yeah. Yeah.
I need to have another look at him, David.
Rob Kozluck.
Anybody?
Are you sure, Andy? Are you sure? So yeah, it's been a really interesting ride, and obviously, I'm definitely having you on fairly regular anyway going forward. So we can get into that as and when.
Nobody wants to listen to me. Jesus Christ!
Yeah, they do.
I don't know why they listen to you half the time. I get fed up of listening to you.
So yeah, well, you've talked about your favourite season, which is mine as well. I can't. Other than obviously we've had successes, and the Wilder period for me was the most special. But in terms of an isolated season, that 2 semi-finals and playoff final, we just ran out of steam, didn't we? At end against Wolves, and it was.
I think he brought back a bit of pride to United as well. I thought. I just loved the way that we played with Wilder. I mean, I've called him, not called him, but I thought it was great what he did. I think it was great the way we played. I thought not only the way we played, but how we played. You know, we didn't dive. We did things properly as a club. You know, we were hard but fair, and I love that about United. And I want us to always be that. I mean, I love. We haven't touched on Morgan Gibbs-White because he's one of my favourites. Obviously, we got on loan, but you know when he got sent off for diving, I hate that sort of thing. You know, I just thought, no, we don't want that. We don't. That's not a United way. But no, when Chris came in, as I say, he did blot his copybook a little bit with me, but I've seen it before with managers. I saw it with Bassett. I saw it with Warnock to an extent. They know the Championship and they know the First Division, so they're great for us getting us up and getting us playing well. But we get to the Premiership and they're like, you don't really know the markets here. You know, it's a completely different thing with his buys. And I thought, I mean, never mind the big buys, you know, the Ryan Brewsters and McBurney, but also, you know, I mean, Ollie Burke, what? You know what I mean? You don't need to be a scout to see how crap he is. Yeah.
You're right. And to be fair, you know, I'm Wilder's biggest champion, both on the Ramble and off the Ramble, because we've talked about it, and you've never gone all in on him, but you've tried to be balanced and say, look, you've got to be able to see where he's gone wrong, and I do. But what you were trying to do was balance me out, because I had Wilder glasses on for so long, and I still do to a degree. But you have to say, look, Jim, his buys were shocking in Premier League. You know,
you've got to know you've got to admit to your weaknesses sometimes, and you've got to say, look. And if Chris had said, look, I've got it wrong. I know he wanted to run everything, and everybody does. You don't want to be in charge of everything that you do. But if you don't know who you're buying and the standards that you're buying, you got to bring somebody else in, which is what the Prince presumably wanted to do. You know, to help him with his buys.
Yeah, and he weren't willing to do it at that time, were he? And I think, to be honest, it's a difficult one, because I think you're on verge of saying he was slightly out of his depth, but you don't mean it like that, because the tactics and the way you're against opposition and stuff, he's still fully switched on with that, and we finished 9th, so he's still a quality manager. But what you meant was he ain't able to assess the level in terms of what he should be spending to improve, and Who's going to be able to make the step up?
That first season, anyway. A lot of promoted teams are like that in the first season. You know, we had the shock value, we had the overlapping centre backs and stuff like that. And we had some good players, and we had we had fans behind us, and I think it was just one of them things. So, but no, all I'm saying is that I've known Chris. I don't know if he'll remember. You always say, tell him that you're not. I don't know whether he'll remember me or not. But I were involved in buying Chris because the first year I was at Bradford City, we got to the playoff final at Wembley, and we played Notts County. Bradford City played Notts County, and Chris Wilder was playing for Notts County, and he was the best player. I'd scouted the team. Chris Wilder was the best player in the Notts County team, and we finished up buying him a season later. So, and we used to go on like post-season trips and stuff like that. So I got chatting to Chris and what have you, because I knew he were a blade. He'd got a blade. I've seen his blades tattoo when we've been on beach and stuff like that. In fact, me and him used to get onto we used to have a fullback called Wayne Jacobs. I don't know whether you remember him, Jim.
I do remember Jakes, yeah.
We had a fullback from they called Wayne Jacobs, and he were a Wednesday eye. So me and Chris used to really get onto him all the time. So Andy were a ginner. So I don't know that I'm allowed to say that, no.
No, it's not. It's not. I love our Ginner Ramblers. So please don't.
Yeah. Also, I've got a granddaughter who's a Ginner.
And your granddaughter's Ginger, yes. Yes, she is. So.
Gold. And Stuart McCall, obviously, who denies, he says he's bloody golden brown or something. I don't know what he is. Says he is.
We
autumn gold.
we laugh at games because obviously you've not seen Stuart for a few years now. But in football, but when you've been in them circles, you can meet up with somebody 10 years later and still be like, "Hey, pal, how's it going?" Blah, blah. So we're obviously we know you know.
Yeah, I know you're trying to embarrass me, Jim. I know you do. So I mean,
he's now assistant
all
manager.
All your Ramblers think you're a nice bloke, don't they, on here? But I'll tell them a few tales about how you bloody try and show me up.
I'm not trying to show you up. It's just what me and our Dave do, really, to be fair. But so every time we go pitch side, don't we, before we sit down, before kickoff, Stuart, can you see us?
No, I don't think it's funny. You'll think it's funny, but I don't think it's funny. So, and none of your Ramblers will think it's funny either.
So if anybody has got any contact details for Stuart McCall, do let him know that Andy the Blade's on and he says hello. And come and say hello to us over on John Street when he's next warming defenders up.
No, so. Stuart will know who I am. He knows who I am.
It's just funny. It's just funny to do that. So, anyway, moving on. So,
okay.
I was going to say, you've told us about your favourite season. You've told us a little bit about one of the best periods that we've had under Wilder. But what were your favourite game for United that you remember most?
Favourite game? Oh, I've told you about this loads of times, Jim. My favourite game was Leicester away, without a shadow of a doubt, when we beat them 5-2 to go up. I'm a little bit. I mean, that was by far. United just took over Filbert Street as it were at the time. It was just a brilliant day all together. And went a goal down, but and Wednesday went down that same day. But
yeah,
I won't bother about that. You know, I quite like us to play Wednesday. You know, rather than play. I think Luton stayed up that game. No, but that was by far my favourite day. I'll tell you one, because obviously there's quite a few little questions on YouTube about favourite games I've seen with United. One that doesn't get mentioned very often was, I think it was I should have looked this up probably, but I think it was 1990. It were our great escape year, where we didn't win until. Well, I'm pretty sure it was Forest. I kept remembering I kept going to these games and we kept getting beat all the time. And we didn't win a game until I think it was December, something like, I'm going to say December, middle of December anyway. And we haven't won a game.
Yeah.
And then we beat Forest at home. And it was like winning World Cup. Everybody were going absolutely crazy. And we stayed up. We finished 13th, I think, that year.
It's brilliant. So, and I think weren't it following season that Harry Bassett had Christmas do on before opening game at season?
Yeah. I think it was or mid-season or something like that. Yeah. Well, you have something left.
So post-Christmas form kicked in.
It was absolutely. I just remember it being. You're thinking to yourself, it's the first game we've won all season, and it's nearly Christmas, and everybody's going crazy. We've won cup. So, yeah, so that's another favourite game of mine.
Right, so you've seen me me chat with Nick, and on there we'd been asked to do a United 1 to 11.
I'm just glad you didn't put a picture of me on like you did of Nick in advert for this.
I haven't thought about what thumbnail we're going to use yet, so hold that thought.
Don't forget, I've got plenty of bloody dirt on you, true, Jimmy boy, by the way.
True. Fair. Respect, father. So, a lot of people had said after that, which, you know, it went down really well because obviously some people agreed, some disagreed, and everybody's got their own opinion, which is great, and it's what we want. We encourage that sort of feedback. But a lot of people were excited because I've obviously alluded to you coming on for ages because I've been nudging you for God knows how long to try and come on. But because you can go further back, obviously, I can't include Tony Curry in my team because I never saw him play. Yeah. You can. I could tell a few stories about Tony Curry, but other than that, we'll skim past that for now. But but you can include a lot more players. You've obviously been watching him a lot longer, so a lot of the Ramblers who were around, who've been same era as you, would be really interested to hear what sort of players you'd include in your team as well. So, just to remind you, I'm going to ask you your manager, your formation, and then your starting 11. You can give honourable mentions to whoever you want. So my team was Dean Henderson, and then I've gone with 3-5-2. You know my team. Yeah. Well, just to remind Ramblers, my team with Dean Henderson in goal, a back three of Jags right centre back, Egan and Jock left centre back. I've got George Baldock and Wayne Quinn as my wing backs. I've gone Norwood and Michael Brown in the centre with Mark Duffy as my number 10 and Illiman just behind Billy up top with Wilder as my manager. That's best individual 11 I can pick, if you like, for the players I've seen. I could argue that James Beattie was a better striker than Billy Sharp, but I think you take longevity into this as well. So fire away, Father. Let me know what your team is.
My team would absolutely hammer yours, Jim, by the way.
Well, you've got triple the time to.
I'll say that to start off with. I've got loads of extras as well, to honorary mentions, which obviously that you can't fit in, as you know. But yeah, one honourable mention that I've got to mention. Never ever saw him, but my dad says he's the best player. Never mind Curry or Illiman or anybody, and he says Jimmy Hagan has got to be in anybody's all-time best 11. Right,
we'll take that from the main man.
So my goalkeeper would be Alan Kelly. I think Henderson is a better keeper. Probably Henderson's probably the best keeper we've had from what I can remember, really. But I think Kelly for most consistent and being really, really good as well. So there's not one that stands out miles above any other, because there was Simon Tracy. Obviously, when I first went to watch him, it were Alan Hodgkinson, who were like 5'2", and a bit taller than that, obviously, but he wasn't very big. I mean, how he come and got crosses, I have no idea. But he was a great shot stopper, from what I can remember. But Henderson is probably the best keeper, but I'm going to pick Kelly in my team.
Okay.
I'm going to go. Oh, you want the manager, don't you, first? I'm going to go for Harry Bassett, because we had a great time with Harry Bassett, with the team that he had, and I just loved the team that he had. Probably Chris Wilder, again, an honourable mention. Neil Warnock's obviously all right, but a bit, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, Chris Wilder I love because he brought Chris Wilder. If we were talking about from First Division to Championship, Chris Wilder would be my manager. Even though I said Bassett really didn't do much in Premiership either, but very close between Wilder and Bassett. I'm going to give it joint.
You could talk yourself into either, couldn't you?
Yeah, joint managers, Wilder and Bassett.
Joint managers. I'm not having that as a cop-out. No chance. You'll be fielding 20 outfield players and all. No chance. Yeah, you will beat us with that. Yeah, you will.
Bassett used to come and help Wilder anyway, didn't he, on a match day? He used to give him a bit of advice. So I'm going to go for... Well, I'm going to say 4-4-2, but obviously it's not really, because it's like a 4-1-3-2 I'm playing.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So my back four is Kyle Walker. I think he's the best right back that we've had in my memory.
In a United shirt?
In a United shirt, yeah. Yeah. I think
he was the best right back performer when he played for United.
Yeah, he was, yeah. Yeah, he was the best. You're thinking I'm just doing it from his Man City days and his Tottenham days, aren't you? But no, I really liked him then anyway. Although I know you did. At the time, Kyle Norton, them two weren't far apart.
Well, I remember, because obviously I know you were watching them two.
I watched Norton first.
But because Norton was seen as the better player, he moved over to left back, didn't he? So Kyle Walker could be more natural in his position because he wouldn't have been as steady on the left. So two right backs, and Norton was moved over to left.
I watched Norton first. He was the one I saw. I picked up on first when I was scouting. But I do think Kyle Walker's. You might be right, Jim, in a way that it might be a little bit of bias from how he's gone on in his
I agree.
Years afterwards. Left back. I was trying to think of left backs, and I couldn't think of a great left back that we've had. We've had some good ones. I like Ender. Go back as far as Ted Emsley, but we were just very steady away from where I can remember. But I've gone for Wayne Quinn, really. So, but he's not one of my all-time favourites, if you know what I mean. He's not somebody you've just got to have that in that team, because I did like Ender for a few years, but I don't think we've got a left back that really stands out and say he's the man for all time. Yeah. If you understand that, I'll go the middle two. I'm going Jags and Maguire. I know
controversial, controversial.
I know. I know you're a big Morgan fan, aren't you? But I think Maguire, he had his when we were watching him again. I'm probably sort of like thinking about how he's gone on, because I think you came with me scouting with him once, didn't you? Oh yeah, we scouted him. Times, and even though he was really young, he was still very good, but he couldn't turn very quick, and he lost people on corners and things like that. But he's shown what a good player he has become, I think. So I think I'm putting Harry in anyway. And
so you're putting Harry in, even though you're putting Harry Maguire in, even though it was raw, he got caught out regular, but because you could see potential in him, you rate him in a United shirt more than you'd rate Morgan, Egan.
Yeah. Only because, but don't forget that when we went to look at Maguire, I think that was his first season when he was making his debut. I think, in fact, we saw him when he came on, I think, or made his debut, and he did improve massively from then on. Don't forget, he had 2 or 3 really good seasons with us. Yeah,
he did, and he started scoring and all sorts of things, really.
So
you're talking about
it's my team.
An 18-year-old Kyle Walker and an 18-year-old Harry Maguire.
Well, obviously they're going to be good in future, aren't they? They're going to have an 18 in future, aren't we?
You'd be good now for us in Prem. This team, for our strategy now, for sustainability.
Listen, Jags is my other one, because even though. Again, he went on and had obviously a great career with Everton and what have you, but he was really good for us and played in all sorts of positions. I mean, I saw him play centre midfield. I saw him play right back. In fact, I think he played right back for us more than he probably played centre back. But he was just such a good player. He could play anywhere. In fact, that's one of them. When you like playing for United and he's such a good player, I think it was probably as well that he moved on, because you tend to become a jack of all trades and not a master of one. So you've got to be a very careful.
I remember you saying very early days, he's a touch short to be a centre half, which I would agree with you now, because it were only his athleticism that let him compete at Premier League level in that regard. But you were always saying he'd make a fantastic right back if a Premier League committed to him being as a right back. It'd be fantastic. Obviously, he's gone on to be great as a centre half, played for England. So, but I don't think I still completely agree with what your initial assessment was, that he's not built like a centre half. You know, he's got other attributes that make him good, and as the game evolved, it suited him better. But like you say, United, we kept moving him round, and it maybe stunted his development in certain areas as well. So,
anyway. Good point. And it is a good point. But an opposite, just slightly going off United, on an opposite way, when I went to look at John Stones for Everton, and John Stones were playing right back at Barnsley, and we were talking about him saying he'd be a much better centre half than he would, because you were quite tall and good on the ball, which is what everybody wanted at that time. A centre half, a ball playing centre half. So, and he was a bit wasted at right back. So obviously he's become a good centre half now. Anyway, so that's my back four. Obviously I've got a couple of Eddie Colloon. You see, Eddie Colloon stands out in my mind as being a really good player, but I can't. Because of my age, I couldn't really remember that much. You know, it was sort of like early days of me going to see him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I just remember him as being a really solid player, but because I can't really remember him that much, I thought, and I love Egan. I love John Egan. I think he's far more important. I think he's far more important to United than a lot of people realise. I know he makes a lot of mistakes here and there, but to have that solidness and that steadiness at back. Yeah, I think he's so important, as important as anybody in our team. So I do really like
calming influence. He talks to lads alongside him, tells them when to go, when to stay. I think he's great. Underrated.
I just like him all the time. Yeah, I just wish he'd bloody keep his headers down when he goes forward. What's all that about?
Goal machine for Ireland and can't hit a band off for United.
And still, we've got one or two of them, haven't we? He hasn't got his team, by the way, Jim.
All right, I didn't think he had. Honourable mention, maybe.
No, not even an honourable mention. Actually, one really good player who I really liked at the time as well, but again, I didn't see enough of him to really say that he could go in. But we had a player called Paul Stancliffe, and he was really, really good for us at the time. But anyway,
I know you. Before you move on to your midfield, David Oldsworth, I always think never gets enough of a mention.
I like David Oldsworth.
I think he were really good for us. Maybe not for as long a time. Some people said Kilgallen as well. We've had some great centre halves when you think about it.
No, you're not a fan? Kilgallen fan. Could go on for all.
Sean Murphy.
No, they can't win all-time 11s, can they? Then?
No, but 18-year-old Harry Maguire can.
He can, yeah. And I'm having the 20-year-old Harry Maguire. How old were he when he went to Hull?
I don't know.
Young. Come on, Mr. Statman.
Well, I'll stop, edit it, and come back and say,
Well, Maguire was with us for 3 years, and he
left on the 15th of February.
Sometimes when I watch you, I think, how do you know this? Yeah, and then I realise, bloody stop.
This is all getting cut out. This is all getting cut out.
So midfield. Now, obviously, this is not just because he's a bit of a mate of mine, but Stuart's in my midfield, and I know he was past his best slightly, but I think he's a great player, Stuart, and I think he's a dying breed of these midfield. Everybody used to have midfielders who used to run the show, and then there don't seem to be any these days, and he's like a midfield general, and he just tells people where to go and looks after things and little passes and sort of like all that. You know what I'm talking? You know what I mean?
We talked about Egan being underrated. McCall is probably one of our most underrated players of all time in terms of the effect he had on that side.
I just wish we could have got him when we were younger. But we've said this all the time. We said this about McGoldrick when we used to complain about McGoldrick not being able to score as many goals as he should do. And we always used to say, just think about it. If McGoldrick could score, he wouldn't be with us.
Yeah.
He'd be playing for Juventus or something like that.
Yeah, or if he were quicker over 10 yards, he wouldn't be with United, would he?
So you can't have when you're watching United, you can't have somebody who's got everything, except Illiman, obviously, and he won't be with us much longer. So I've got poor old Stuart doing the work of four in midfield. So he's my defensive midfielder. Then my three behind the front two.
This is ridiculous, by the way. This is why you're a scout and not a manager.
Is one of my all-time favourites on the right of midfield is Alan Woodward, who was brilliant but totally underrated, even though we all thought he was great. But he was a right winger, but he could shoot, he could score goals, he could go past players, he could cross a ball, he could pass. He was strong. He was a really, really good player. And one of my favourites of all time is Alan Woodward.
Right.
Could never understand what happened to him at the end. I did a little bit digging later on, obviously, when I was more involved in football, and realised there were some. As fans, you don't often get to know when these things go off behind the scenes, so can't really go into that. So, but it was something non-football that finished up with him leaving us. Which was a shame. So that was Alan Woodward, and his mate in the middle, who was my all-time favourite, as you know, is number 10, Tony Curry. So when we were chatting with him, Jim, the other day, as you do, I said to him, I says, Jim thinks that Illiman's the best player he's seen of all time. I says, but he's obviously not seen you, has he, Tony? And he said, too right.
There were an expletive in there somewhere as well, weren't there?
Yes, it did, yeah. So that's it. If you've seen Tony Curry was a class above, and he were a pleasure. He made it a pleasure to watch United whenever they played. So a little bit like Illiman, because you'd go and watch United just to watch Illiman, wouldn't you? So,
yeah, you would, yeah.
And you would. It was the same with Tony Curry. So I can't say any. I can't give enough accolades to Tony Curry about how he was a player, except for the fact that he went to Leeds afterwards, which one or two of United players do. But there you go. Yeah. I've heard Alex Sabella mentioned in that role. I don't think you were a patch on Curry. He was a very, very skillful player with Alex Sabella, but didn't really have I didn't think he had the effect on games that he maybe should have done. Right. There were other players, Glyn Hodges and people like that, who I thought about putting in. But anyway, so that was that. On my left side, I don't know if it'll fit on the left side, but it's fitting in because it never fall in love with a lone player. But we all did, didn't we, for that one season? He's just in my head in went to Forest. But Gibbs White, I know we only had him for a season, but I think he was for us, and I think he still is now for Forest. I think he's an absolute class act. I love players who have got the skill and the ability to alter games, but yet will still put in the effort to make it happen, rather than just, I'm really good, give me the ball and I'll do something. But if they haven't got the ball, people like Gibbs White and Ndai will make it happen. They'll go and they'll chase people down and they'll demand the ball and things like that. So I thought Gibbs White were an absolute class act, and I wish we still had him. Yeah. A better player than Ndai the year we had him, I thought, as well.
Well, the year we had him, but I would say Illiman now is a better player than Gibbs White was then.
Well, yeah, close call. Ndai kicked on when Gibbs White left, obviously. Ndai kicked on last season. Front two, we've got Ndai, obviously, behind the front man. And that's because he can be anything he wants. I thought last season was as good a season from a young player that I can see in a long, long time. And I think we've spoken about this, Jim, haven't we, when we've been on his own, and he's got a massive ceiling. Anything can happen. Things can go wrong. We've seen people have great seasons and then ease off a little bit.
Yeah, Dele Alli and things like that.
Yeah. Even Michael Brown. I mean, Michael Brown was in my honorary members. Because that season that we had when he scored about 20 goals for us, well, unbelievable. But then he never scored that many again, even though he had a great career, went on to Tottenham and did good things. And I've seen it with other players who've just had, just odd seasons who've just done brilliant. I hope this, and I'm sure this won't be the case with Illiman. I'm just saying it is a slight possibility, but it won't happen with Illiman. So
and we obviously with danger of going off on a bit of a tangent, but I remember us talking about that, and Michael Brown is a huge sort of puzzling one for us because he went to Leeds after us and all this, and people never played him in that advanced midfield role. And he weren't quite a number 10, but they used to let him attack, didn't they? And not even box to box. He were more second half of the field, getting forward, running into the box, late arrival, and then it were whenever he moved, he worked defensive midfielder, sort of trying to break up play, and it's not playing to his strengths just because he can do it.
Kicking everybody.
Yeah, and he did that well. Don't get me wrong, but
he did do it
better
well.
attacking midfielder for us.
And as I said, that season that Michael Brown had with us were brilliant. But I don't think he's ever touched the heights again of that season. But anyway,
no, I agree.
But Illiman has got to be in our team. Got to be in an all-time team, even though he's only really he's had one brilliant season last season, and he had one pretty good season the season before.
Yeah, he did. But
as my mate TC says, let him do it for a few years in
the
Premiership.
While we're talking about him, you know that obviously I think we're all under the impression that this is certainly his last year, if we get to see that last year, if he's not sold beforehand. But do you think he makes the step up to the Prem with ease?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. It depends what team you're playing for, and the thing is, he's got to be a bit careful because he's got to make sure he plays regularly. I think. You don't want to be a bit part player.
No, it's a difficult one for United, isn't it? Because we don't want to be too reliant on him because we need a plan B, don't we, going forward? So, but while you've got a player of that quality, you've got to use it.
Yeah, I think he would be definitely worth keeping, even if we had to let him go for nothing. I think he could be the difference between us staying up this year and not staying up, which is obviously a massive thing. We have gone backwards and forwards on this loads of times, but I would still keep him even if we got him, if we had to let him go for nothing at the end of the season. And I know, the accountants amongst us will say, well, we could get 15 million and we could keep him and not go up and get nothing for him, but I think it's worth the risk for that. For 15 million as well.
15 mil, it's not enough, is it? If they're offering 30, if they're offering 30, then it's a decision. Yeah.
That's a different thing, yeah. I think Everton offered about 25 in season, which I'm glad we didn't take because obviously he put us over the line, probably did Illiman. I certainly hope he put us over the line.
No link still lingering at Everton then?
No what?
Due to that link? No sort of association with Everton still ongoing then with that?
No. I'm all Blades now. I want Illiman to stay with us. There's nothing like that now.
Go on then. So, who's your main man up top?
My main man is Ollie Oh no, it's not. I've written that down wrong.
That's honourable mention. Yeah.
No, it's not honourable mention. I want to. I want to like all Blaze players, but I cannot get me around poor old Ollie. I just cannot. I cannot see him. I know he had a half decent season last season, but I'm not going to go on about Ollie. But anyway. So Brian Dean.
Yes.
Up front. Brian Dean. Yeah. You obviously got to think about it. You've got to think about Billy, who's been brilliant for us, for our club. Keith Edwards, who you never saw, who obviously scored for fun for us. Brian Dean was the main man, really, for quite a long time for us. He went to Leeds as well, didn't he? And left it. I know. Don't get me going on that, Jim.
Yeah.
So I have to. Also, and he left us for Benfica in the middle of the season. You don't know how much they've got to do with that, or whether they were just forced out. But no, Brian Dean was great for us. I know he did a bit of he was a dual act with Tony Agana, but Brian Dean were really quality for us. So he got it because he was probably a better. I think him and Sharp was probably just as good as servants for the club. You know what I mean? They're both club legends. But I think I'll put Brian Dean in just because he's probably a better player than.
I think you can go either way, can't you? Because you could go with Billy because it's the sentimental choice, really. And I went with Billy because he's a boiled blade, boy, player, captain. But like you say, it's horses for courses as well. And if you think Dino were a slightly better player, then you go with that because the longevity is there for both and the success that they've had and things like that.
It's a bit difficult, really, obviously, these all-time teams because, it's... Well, like you've pulled me up on a few times earlier, are you sure you're not picking the Man City Kyle Walker and all that sort of stuff? But it's also... You are. But it's also, the legend of Billy Sharp or, the better player of Beattie might you say? You know, you can't say Billy Sharp's a better player than Beattie.
No, you can't. No,
but you put Billy Sharp in your all-time team. So what is your all-time team? Is it your all-time favourite team, or is it your all-time best team?
It's your own individual interpretation, isn't it? And
absolutely, that's exactly what
I think longevity comes into it, but obviously quality has to also be. Yeah, absolutely. Just while we're on Dino, actually, I know you've sort of been back and forth a little bit on this, and you watch him with a keen eye, but Jebbo is obviously somebody who is coming through the United ranks. There's been a lot of similarities. I don't know whether openly. I know we've talked about it in terms of it reminds us a lot.
You'll give me some stick about Jebbo.
Well, go on then. If you want to say that, elaborate then.
And live on your Ramble, by the way. Oh yeah,
did I do it on a Ramble?
I was just saying, I don't rate Jebbo that much. Just before he came on and made 2 goals.
Yeah,
do you remember that one?
Do that. You did do that. Yeah,
I did do.
No,
that.
You were. I think it was to give like a full peek behind the scenes. I think you rate Jebbo and you want him to do really well, but it's just a frustrating player, isn't he? In terms of he's not really kicked on like we thought he might have done. But it's still very early days. What I was going to ask is, because he's still very raw, we've talked about him having a lot of similarities to a very raw Brian Deane, but do you still see those same qualities in him? Do you think he'll not necessarily reach the same levels for United, but there's a shake of the head?
No, I don't.
No.
I'm not. I've got to say, I'm not a massive Jebbo fan. I think he promises a lot and doesn't deliver. I know you gave me some stick because I was just saying exactly the same thing at the game when he came on and did that little fancy flick and bloody played somebody in. And I'm like, oh, shit for me. So, yeah, I do realise, but I think he should have. No, and I understand he's young and he's got all the tools. I like Asula better than Jebbo.
Yeah, a lot do. Yeah,
I can see Asula goes past players with ease. I think he's big, he's strong, he's quick. I mean, obviously, he's bloody. He ain't got the the calmness in front of goal that we're wanting yet. He just seems to hammer it as hard as he can. But I think if he gets that right, I think he's a really good player. You never know whether it is or not with young players like that. You never know. But I really like Asula and Jefferson. I know I've just been reading in the other day that Everton are in for him again. All right, I've been interested in him again. If we could get a good amount of money for him, I'd sell Jefferson.
Well, there's talk of a 5 million and a sell on. You'd take that, wouldn't you?
I probably want a little bit more, to be honest.
Would you?
But you know,
what, we a year left?
He played 16, something like. Did he play about 16 games last year?
Not sure.
He got one goal.
Yeah, but you can't just go on blanket games, can you? If he's getting 5-10 minutes here and there.
No, but he had a lot of chances last year. He had quite a few chances. So I think, I'm not sold on Jefferson. Yeah, and as I say, he is very young, but I'm not sold on Jefferson. I'm more sold on Asula. I'd be more disappointed if Asula went than Jefferson.
Let us know what you'll think in the comments down below. Who's your captain of your team?
It'll have to be Stuart, I think.
Stuart. With TC not captain material? Too much of a maverick?
No. Look, you've got to let your flair players do what they want without thinking about what's happening with the rest of the team and what positions they're in. You know, you don't want them to, give all, come back. You know what I mean? Or,
So you've got Tony Curry, Gibbs White, and Ndiaye all just doing what they want.
And Woodward. Yeah. I know, Stuart, you've got a hard job, mate. I know you're captain.
Hard job.
You're doing the work of 5 men. But there you go.
This is because you haven't spoken to him for years, isn't it? This is because you're annoyed with him because he doesn't say hello to you on match day.
I'll give him a good contract.
It's going to be like a Kevin Keegan, isn't it? You'll beat teams like 10-8 or something like that because defence is poor. 18-year-old Harry Maguire wet behind ears.
What a load of rubbish.
You'll do what we said to do to him. You'll pull him out of defence and you'll drop a ball in over his head and that'll be it. He can't turn.
No, that was the 18-year-old Maguire, not the 20-year-old that we had him a bit later.
Next to Neil Collins.
Make sure I'm not making any mistakes on these, by the way, when you edit it. I want you to check them all.
Well, you can't redo your whole team once I've called you out on it.
Yeah. You're saying, well,
right.
Maguire left when he was 19. Oops.
So, listen, I know this is the Blades Ramble, so maybe we're a little bit biased in this, but my team beat Nick's team in the votes and the comments. So let me know what you think. Because we're both Ramblers. Whose is the better team? I'll put them up again on screen.
My team would absolutely hammer your team. There's no
all we need to do is
question. Eh?
No chance. Michael Brown takes out Tony Curry in the first 5 minutes and you're done.
Yeah, can't do that. We're not having that, are we? We're not having that.
Oh, dear me. So, yeah, full of flair, but no guile in your team. No chuffing. Nobody to stop us other than McCall, who will pass round. He bloody struggled for pace as well, didn't he? So you can't leave him on his own. Unfair, and we'll absolutely run riot. But anyway,
I'm gonna have Morgan. Chris Morgan, Trevor Rocky, and a few more on bench, so they'll come on kick you if you're doing that.
Don't do that. Don't do that. You can't have that. So yeah, Morgan, what a player he was.
Yeah. We're all right if you wanted somebody kicking.
Right. Dad, thank you so much for coming on. Okay. How has it been for your first time on the Ramble?
I've no idea, Jim. I've just bloody... just talked as I normally do. I've no idea what to come over.
That's what we want. That's what we want.
Why anybody would want to listen to me and you bloody rabbiting away, I've no idea.
Me neither, but we'll see how it goes.
All they have to do is come to Triple Point and just sit with us. And this is what they get.
I've been offered, right. So if anybody is watching this that's connected or anything like that, obviously Ramble's gone really well and we're really appreciative of how it's growing and stuff like that. And I've been offered a few different opportunities and things of that nature. All my dad wants is a table at Triple Point. So if you can get us
I'm not worried about table, seat. I'm only for me. I'm not worried about your seat. You three can stand up, aren't they?
So, yeah, we'll pass on anything apart from we need a seat for my father at Triple Point, please. Just a reserved spot, preferably outside if weather's nice. But, you know, we'll take out. So, yeah, Dad, thank you so much. I've absolutely loved it. It's been just as good as I knew it were going to be. And hopefully you'll get the comments that show that people want you back on.
Make sure you edit it well. I don't want to...
What, put a filter on you and stuff? Is that what you're on about?
On. Yeah. Make me look a bit slimmer. No,
listen, if there were one of them, I'd have had it on from the start. So don't worry. I can't do that, I'm afraid. I'm not a magic worker. But anyway, cheers, Dad. I will let you get off. So there we have it, Ramblers. I finally got him on. Appreciate you taking the time to watch this because obviously you won't have known him before. Some may have done. It may have jogged your memories and you might know him from times gone by. Please don't circulate any of those stories without proof. But it's been fantastic to have my dad on. Andy Smith 37 on Twitter. Get on to him. Put it in the comments. Let him know how much he enjoyed his appearance. I want him on as a regular spot because I really value his opinion. He's obviously, listen, everybody's opinion is valid, but we're on the same wavelengths as you've hopefully seen. And I think it can lead to some really interesting debate because just because we're on the same wavelength don't mean we agree on everything. And we certainly don't. So if you want to see more of him, let him know in comments. It's very much appreciated that he's taking time to come on. I've been on at him. Honestly, it must be 6 months plus. So let him know and we'll get him on again. Thank you to our Ramblers. We're up to 55 now. It's incredible. There's some live content exclusive just for you guys coming up this week. So thank you for your support. It's very much appreciated. I'll be back very shortly. And come on, you red and white wizards. Up the blade. Ramble on.